Lowe's knows how to get you ready for holiday hosting with up to 35% off select home decor. And get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, members get free delivery, haul-away, basic installation, parts, and a 2-year Lowe's protection plan when you spend $2,500 or more on select LG major appliances. Valid through 10/1. Member offer excludes Massachusetts, Maryland, Wisconsin, New Jersey, and Florida. Installed by independent contractors. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for more details.
If you thought goldenly breaded McDonald's chicken couldn't get more golden, think Golder! Because new sweet and smoky special edition gold sauce is here. Made for your chicken favorites.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello, welcome to The Last Show. Happy Tuesday. Here's what we're going to cover and what you'll learn on tonight's program. When you think of the CIA, of government agencies like that, you probably picture trench coats, code books, maybe even high-tech gadgets. But some of their real operations, they're stranger than fiction, and others still a lot steamier than you'd think. Halfway through the hour, we will look at the agency's sexier side, plots that involve seduction, adult entertainment videos, if you know what I mean, and believe it or not, dolls. You know, those kind of dolls. A doll a lonely person might buy. And no, these aren't spy movie punchlines, they're declassified history. So later in the program, you'll learn how the world's most powerful intelligence agency has a weird and risque past. Okay, that's a bit later, but for now, we're about to tell you about a man banned from Walmart for having the weirdest emotional support animal you can imagine. Let's jump in. And in the people of Pennsylvanian Walmart's news, a man has been told he cannot return to Walmart with his emotional support animal. We report live from the scene of Croatia, which is not the scene, but we are joined by foreign correspondent Tony Five, who is in Croatia and not in London, England. Tony, welcome.
David, I am live from the side of the Adriatic Sea. It is a wonderful place. And yes, David, it's very, very serious. Walmart has prevented this man from coming in with an emotional support animal, my friend.
And what, pray tell, is this emotional support animal? Side note, I've seen pictures with him and this animal, and it's wearing like a cozy with fur, like you might see on a Chihuahua in winter. But it's not a Chihuahua, Tony.
Speaking of chihuahuas, I mean, I have seen emotional support animals in the airport. I saw a lovely little dog. Some people have birds, you know, anything that provides emotional support, which is wonderful. This man can only be described as someone who needs a lot of emotional support, my friend. He has an alligator.
Yeah, you'd think this would be a Florida story, but no, it's a Pennsylvania story. The man did his research. He went on the internet. He saw that his alligator could be registered as a support animal. I don't really know what that registry process is. The alligator seems very peaceful. I saw a video of this guy talking with it, and the alligator's just kind of like resting in his lap like a cat almost.
I'll be honest with you, how peaceful can an alligator be? I mean, does it give off many signs that it's not going to bite you and rip you in half?
Well, I suppose if you're walking around with pieces of raw chicken hanging off of your clothing, you're liable to get bit. But I don't know. It does look peaceful. And are alligators really the evil creatures we make them out to be?
David, they have something called a death roll. I'll be honest with you, pandas don't have a death roll. And that would be my support animal, an emotional support panda. I think that would be an incredible support animal.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But a death roll, that's when an alligator takes a bite of its prey and then just starts spiraling to like kill it and jostle it?
Correct. It bites them. So I am an expert in alligator death rolls. It bites you, and what it does is it hugs you and then rolls you round until you cannot do anymore. So you're rolling underwater, you're suffocating and you're drowning, and you're rolling around with this alligator. Again, doesn't sound very emotionally supportive.
But sounds slightly appetizing. Again, I feel like something you could maybe order at a sushi restaurant in Florida, an alligator death roll. Maybe it's just extremely spicy or something.
I think we said once off air that we will never do Florida stories again because they sound like we're making them up. which is true. We're already bordering ridiculous, bordering getting banned from the air. And when we do any sort of Florida-based story, it sounds like we're making them up because they're ridiculous. But yes, this one luckily contains all the tropes of Florida, but without being in Florida.
Happens to be in Pennsylvania. Anyway, this guy brings his alligator to Walmart, and finally they tell him, you can't come in here with that thing. Are you on Walmart's side? Are you on the guy's side, assuming it hasn't hurt anyone? It's only a 32-pounder, so it's not very big.
Okay.
Whose side are you on with this one?
See, now I'm on the side of the others because obviously I would be terrified. But then, with this whole DEI inclusivity and stuff, you can't really ban the guy from going because if he claims it gives him emotional support, who am I? Who am I to say that this alligator doesn't? So, I'm on the fence. I'm high up on the fence. It's hurting my and yeah, that's me.
This guy... He's not just any guy. He's a pastor at a Baptist church. And when interviewed about it,
from Florida, are you 100% sure? Are you 100% sure you've read this right? Are you sure this is definitely not in Florida? You haven't mistaken it.
I have not looked up this guy's past. Maybe he grew up in Florida. We don't know.
Correct.
I suppose I could have Googled it, but I didn't. But he is a pastor at a Baptist church. And when interviewed, he said this. In the Bible, God talks about us having dominion over animals, and I have developed an affinity for reptiles. I find them very soothing. That is what he said.
That is, where does it end, my friend? Where does it end? But yeah, like I said, if this guy finds peace with an alligator, who are we to cast judgment on it? And that was John chapter 5, verses 7-11, I think. 7-11 being open 24 hours a day.
If a man brings a alligator into Walmart, thou should not judge. John 73, maybe.
Yep, thou should not sleepeth with alligators in neighbor's breath.
That is something that makes some sense. Okay, if you were to pick an emotional support animal, if only to get headlines, if only to get a cockeyed view from a neighbor on an airplane, yours would be a panda?
Mate, I've already said that, a panda. I think pandas are amazing. I like a rhino. That's my favorite animal, a rhinoceros. I would love a rhinoceros tattoo. But I love pandas. I think they are the most ridiculous bears alive. If you look at them, it's amazing they've not got extinct. They're so dopey. They fall over everything. They just eat the same sort of food.
And they only eat bamboo, which is
Correct.
terrible for them. And it gives them no nutrition and it puts them in horrible health.
Absolutely.
There is no good reason why Mother Nature shouldn't have gotten rid of the panda.
I think Mother Nature was on a day off that day. It was like an early learning convention, but they fall over all the time. They're just absolutely ridiculous. They're confused all the time. I think they're amazing, and I think they are relatively soothing. In London at the moment, there's a panda pop-up where you can go and buy pandas of various sizes at their exact weight, and people are going crazy for it, my friend.
They certainly are. And every time I see a video of a panda, I'm convinced it's a person in a panda
Correct.
costume. They really don't look like animals that are real. They really just look like people in costumes. I'm always surprised when they yank the panda's head and then a head doesn't come off the costume, which has actually never happened, but you can imagine it could happen.
As the kids say, on a real one, I still believe there are very small people in panda outfits. Nobody has convinced me that they're not. And until I'm up close with a panda, I don't believe that there are not small people in panda outfits.
I myself am a panda denier. There are those that say birds aren't real. I do concede that birds are probably real, but pandas, I'm not convinced. I would have for the longest time said that my ideal emotional support animal would be like a cockroach, so I could just pull out a little box with a horrifying 1.5-inch cockroach. But having been a huge fan of the 90s sitcom Frasier,
Yes.
when Niles Crane, Frasier's brother, played by David Hyde Pierce, gets a cockatiel and just the antics of the bird, I just think it would be so funny to have a parrot or a cockatiel on my shoulder on an airplane and say it's my emotional support cockatiel.
I can completely imagine you with that, saying the most profane, racist, anti-Semitic, anything anti, you would train that cockatiel to do. And anytime you caused offense, you would just point at the cockatiel on your shoulder like Long John Silver and say, "It's not me."
He was a rescue. I swear I didn't train him that.
Rescue. I didn't teach him any of that. I can imagine that. And I can imagine in your old age, as you get more and more eccentric, that's becoming more and more of a likelihood. When Miranda finally wakes up and realizes who you are, and you're left alone with a cat, I think that would be the way forward.
As a Jew, I would find it funny having an anti-Semitic cockatiel. Tony, you happen to be black. If my cockatiel was racist, would you find it hilarious or offensive or both?
As all isms, racism, anti-Semitism, botulism, I find them all absolutely hilarious.
Fair enough. We're here with Tony 5. Will this show get canceled at the commercial break? That'll be the cliffhanger. But when we come back, Tony 5 had an interesting dream. We'll talk about dream analysis.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Checking off the boxes on your to-do list is a great feeling. And when it comes to checking off coverage, a State Farm agent can help you choose an option that's right for you. Whether you prefer talking in person, on the phone, or using the award-winning app, it's nice knowing you have help finding coverage that best fits your needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Most shows deliver serious news that you can use. As a point of differentiation, we give you news you can't use. The Last Show, with David Cooper and special foreign correspondent, Tony 5.
The strangest dream you've ever had. That is what we'll discuss here with Dr. Sigmund Tony 5 Freud, our foreign correspondent in London, England, who had an odd dream. We're going to pick it apart. If you've had a strange dream and want to share it with this, well, I was going to call it a show, but if you want to share it with whatever this is, give us a call. The number 1-888-505-6644. Tony 5 joining us from Croatia, of all places. We just kind of glossed over that before the commercial break. Let's start there, then we'll get to dreams. I swear there will be order to this segment we're doing here on the radio. Tony, welcome to the show. What are you doing in Croatia?
So I took the bus the wrong way and ended up near the Adriatic in Croatia. Beautiful, beautiful country. I'm here just for a few days, just to get away from the awful weather of London. I am sitting in a wonderful hotel room, David, just opposite the Adriatic Sea. It's absolutely stunning. There are not many people of colour here. 2 people have wanted to touch me, and one person wanted my autograph, which was lovely here. And it's just beautiful. Just a couple of days away. It's only 2 hours from London. I managed to get a cheap flight, a very cheap flight. So you're talking about maybe $40 or $45, which was brilliant. And it's so cheap here. But this dream I had slightly, very tentatively ties into that. And it features, David, you.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm all ears with that. And you're there with another beautiful, lovely black person as well. Your wonderful 80 years young date, your mother.
My 83-year-old mum. No, we're not sharing a room, David. This is always weird that you ask me that as a first question. Are you, literally the first, are you sharing a bed with your mum? And I'm like, no, dude. I know that's your weird fetish, but no. And I can guarantee I know the questions that you're going to ask me before I've even said it. So, so she's in the room next door making tea as she normally does, annoying the locals by talking to them. So I'm here now. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. My dream, and I remember you said you have a theory that all dreams, all the characters in one's dream are the person dreaming it. So for my dreams, you're saying that all of the people in my dreams are me. Is that right?
Yeah, because it's like your subconscious motivations and stuff. So like if something with conflict happens in your dream, it's an inner conflict. And who is the inner conflict represent if not yourself? So all these characters in your dreams are some manifestation of you or your projection of yourself or the qualities that you have. If it's your mother, maybe it's the qualities you're worried about having. If it's me, maybe it's the things that like you don't like about yourself that remind you of me. I don't know. I'm not saying that's how you should analyze every dream. I'm just saying that's how my old shrink used to do it.
Okay, well, I don't know how much you were paying them, but this is a proper one. So I got off a plane from Croatia, so it was very, very realistic. It had just happened maybe 6 hours ago, and you were with me. So we were on holiday together, and we were going, so everything I said, you said the opposite of me, right? So I was going, oh, it's this way to the car hire place. You were going, no, Tony, it's the other way. Don't you know? And I was getting increasingly irate. So we hired like a HPV, and we went to go and sign for it and stuff. And
we hired an HPV?
SUV, same difference.
Oh, okay. We
And
rented
so
a car, as we say in North American English.
Is that not what you say? Right. So anyway, we got in this car and we were driving, and like I was driving, and you were so critical of my driving. Every time I took a turning, you were saying you shouldn't have done that. And I was just getting so angry and angry. It was like building up, building up. And I was like, David, just calm down. And you got so upset that I snapped at you that you went into some random toilet by the side of the road, locked yourself in, and started crying. And you wouldn't come
Okay.
out, right, until you said to me, I'm only going to come out, Tony, if you sing to me. So then I had to stand by the side of this road with this SUV singing to you. And you were like, no, it has to be a Jewish melody, Tony, because I know you don't like them. So then I had to sing like a Jewish...
Like a klezmer song?
a Jewish melody from your childhood that apparently I wasn't singing properly, and you wouldn't let me finish. You wouldn't get in the car, and I was getting so stressed out that I didn't know the song, and I didn't want to offend you anymore because I didn't want to make any jokes. And you were like, my mom used to sing it to me to soothe me. And again, I never say the word soothe. And I was like, it soothes me, David. It soothes. Like you were telling me, Tony, it soothes me. It soothes me. I was like, okay, I'll do anything to soothe you, David. Just get in the car. And this went on in my dream for so long, and I had to like really just hold my tongue. And in the end, you came out all sheepish. You were like, I'm so sorry, I overreacted. And I was like, that's fine. And the rest of our journey was great. But it was just such a bizarre... Have you ever had those dreams where you wake up and they're so visceral? I think I've been having these recently. It may be the sort of pork I'm eating. But anyway, it's like so visceral that I just didn't know what to do. And then, yeah, that's been on my mind. Like, and it actually, I'm happy with this dream because this dream was kind of funny. The other dreams I've been having have been like freaking me out a bit and really knocking my confidence a bit. This one was funny, which is why I remembered it.
Let's just stay with this dream before we go on to the next one. I don't think I'm me in that dream. I think I'm you. I think I'm a side of yourself that is critical of what you do. I'm always kind of like pushing you to try new things, new foods. I want you to come to like festivals with me. I want you to experience new things. I want you to travel with me. I'm pushing you to do things, and maybe your projection of me is you pushing you to be different and get out of your comfort zone. What do you think about that? And then if you're angry with me or I'm angry with you, maybe you're like, okay, well, if I push myself too hard, I'll get upset, and then I got to forgive myself for it. I don't really know. That's my crackpot take on the dream, but I don't think I'm me in this dream. I think I'm you. I'm a side of you that you don't like or that's pushing you to be different or something like that.
Okay, Jewish nursery rhyme. What was that about?
That one I have no...
The Jewish... That was the one that stressed me out the most because you were locked in this roadside toilet and you kept telling me to sing. And I don't... Dude, I have no idea what a Jewish nursery rhyme is. I don't even know whether that's a thing. You just mentioned something beginning with G. Glasnost?
What? I don't know. I don't know any Jewish nursery rhymes.
You just said to me just now, like 5 minutes ago, you said, oh, you sang a Jewish, like, nursery rhyme or children's rhyme, and you described something, and I glossed over it.
Oh, klezmer music. No, that's like, with like clarinet and a certain weird beat. It's like yoity-doity-doy. There's no lyrics to klezmer music that I know.
Okay, klezmer. Is that like a traditional sort of like folk songs, a Jewish folk songs or whatever?
Yeah, it's like Eastern European, like Yiddish. I feel like Fiddler on the Roof has a lot of klezmer in it, like that kind of vibe. But they're not nursery rhymes.
Okay, so now I can tell you where that came from. So on the drive down, on the local radio, Croatian radio, there was a lot of that kind of music, muzak, like background music. Fiddler, when you said Fiddler on the Roof, that's it. Okay, now I get there. Right, brilliant.
I would say klezmer is heavily influenced by or from Eastern European music.
Yes.
It's not too dissimilar. There's a few elements that make it like very Jewish, but it's essentially that kind of music. So maybe it was just you heard it in the background and there it was in your subconscious. But I don't know any Jewish nursery rhymes. I was only sung regular nursery rhymes. There aren't like religion-specific ones that I know of. They may exist, but they weren't sung to me.
Were you sung nursery rhymes as a child? Like, do you remember that viscerally? Do you remember physically being sung nursery rhymes?
I don't. I might have been sung them. I might not have been sung them. I have a terrible memory. I was, I had a big drinking problem when I was 6 months old. So milk was the problem. But yeah, I think the me in your dream pushing you to drive differently, behave differently is there's some subconscious thing. You want to be doing things different, but you're worried about them or you judge yourself for them. I don't think I'm me in that dream.
Okay. Aside from the fact that I'm trying to obviously learn a new hobby, which this is like an ongoing quest for me, I am going to try and analyze I'm very, very fascinated how the subconscious works. And as I got older, I realized that that plays a hell of a big part in your life, right? I mean, on a serious note, I have a friend whose mother has developed Alzheimer's very, very quickly, and has gone from like fully compassed to very, very sick. And I think at that stage I didn't realize how strong the mind could be, how much of we are our mind. Like we can use our legs, our arms, our use of our body, but actually losing your mind is very difficult.
All right. Well, Dr. Tony V. Sigmund Freud is here from Croatia. Thanks for sharing your dream analysis with us. I think the moral of the story for people listening is when you have these disturbing dreams, think of all these elements in your dream as a representation of you, not these other people.
Yeah, or have a Jewish nursery rhyme in the back of your mind always.
That'll work as well. Tony, it's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Take care, my friend. Dobry dosle, which is Croatian for goodbye.
Spies with gadgets are one thing, but what about spies with adult dolls? You know, those kind of dolls. Up next, some of the strangest CIA operations you've never heard of. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables. Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
Please be advised that the following program contains audio content that may be graphic and potentially triggering for some listeners. This content may include descriptions or sounds that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
The overlords or masterminds at the CIA, at spy agencies, may seem sneaky, sinister, like they're planning something evil, but it's clear to me they have a sense of humor because there have been secret government plots with sex, pornography, and sex dolls. And I could not think of a better thing to discuss here. We are here with Dr. Lee Kuhnle, a political science professor at Humber Polytechnic, who co-hosts the Uncover Up podcast for Conspiracy Corner. Lee, I am so glad you pitched this topic to the show. I'm so excited to discuss it.
Well, I'm so glad that you like it, although I was kind of hoping you were going to make this out to be your idea instead of mine. I think I've just lost all potential credibility that I might have had coming on your show. But it is a fun topic, and it's one of those for me that is sort of something I've been thinking about along the lines of history is weirder than conspiracy theories.
It certainly is.
There's just so much stuff that has for real happened that, I don't know, to me sometimes it sounds stranger than some of the more outrageous conspiracies. And so I thought I'd come with 3 real operations, as you say, where sex and sex-related things have been instrumentalized for secret purposes.
Well, we've all heard of like honeypots where some sexy spy, maybe it's a woman who's willing to do sex, maybe it's a man, goes off and interferes with some foreign person. Maybe they're a government official, maybe they're a diplomat, goes to bed with them and then blackmails them, steals secrets in the morning out of their safe. We've all heard of plots like that. But when you actually look at them, they're often weirder and stranger than you'd imagine.
That's right. And I actually deliberately tried to steer away from the honeypot one because, of course, that's exactly what I would assume your audience is like, well, I know that they do that. That's obvious. And you're right. When you look at it, sometimes those things are more interesting. But I thought, let's look at some where they're using other things. Well, we should just talk about it because I'm sort of skirting around it. But yeah, what are sexy operations that don't require honeypots? I think I have 3.
Let's start with this Sukarno event. Tell me about this one. It's weird. It certainly is.
It's weird. And this is one of the few where nobody, as I understood it, got hurt. So this is especially a nice kind of story to tell.
Happy ending.
Okay.
Pardon
yeah.
the pun.
Well, you're halfway there because as you will see okay, I'll get there, but you'll see. So it's 1959. The place is Indonesia. The president is a guy named Sukarno. Now, he's nominally a nationalist and on the side of the United States in that epic Cold War battle between who's siding with the Soviets and who's with the Americans. But for policy analysts in the States, Sukarno is a bit too chummy with the Soviets. They're worried they're going to lose him to the Soviets. And of course, this was the game in the Cold War, like who are the various countries going to side with, and people would pay them off or fight wars or whatever.
So he's on the surface kind of like America aligned, but on the great railway towards communism, he's just a few stops before getting off at communists. He's got communist friends. Some of his ideology overlaps with communism. The Americans are worried about him.
Exactly. Now, we're depicting this from, say, a CIA perspective.
Sure.
So these guys have a very low bar for what might constitute communism in the 1960s, you know?
Fair
so for us, it might not seem at all radical, but for the CIA especially, they were like, this is getting a little dicey. What should we do? Like, what do we do in order to make sure that Indonesia remains an American asset and ally and doesn't flip? So what they come up with is a disinformation campaign. The CIA decides to engage in a disinformation campaign against Sukarno, where they're going to get lookalikes. They're going to get somebody who looks like the president and film that actor in sexual relations with somebody who's not his wife.
An adult film. They produce an adult film. What a lovely way to treat an ally, side note.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And to your earlier point, they actually called the film Happy Days. This was the name for the film that they made in 1960, which apparently depicted Sukarno, but didn't.
It sounds like a 90s sitcom, but it's like a horrible one. But yeah, so they film this thing. They get a lookalike to have sex on camera. They produce the video. What do they do with it?
Well, the intention was to release it because the hope was that this would embarrass the president so much that he would just have to resign. Again, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, that's such a different age politically where we had things like shame and people would voluntarily resign. And that was the idea. They were going to release it. The population would be aghast and he would just resign. And the person who would, and you know, this is not elaborated anywhere, but the assumption is the next person would be a lot friendlier with the Americans and kind of had learned their lesson, I think would be kind of the subtext here. But when they did the film, like when they produced it, they looked at it themselves and were like, no one's going to believe this. Like this is whatever so it has never been released. I've not been able to see a copy of it.
For research and academic purposes, because
course.
you study conspiracy theories is why you would want to see it. Just to make that very clear.
You were joking about this, but I have to like research really like awful stuff, like the kind of stuff that is probably in my cache of my search engine is just like besides the fact that this is the stuff I work on, I would never be able to otherwise justify it because you do end up in some pretty gross corners of the internet. And even there, this film does not exist. So it has never, to the best of my knowledge, and maybe if your audience has it, somehow, please send it along to David Cooper. We definitely
we need it for academic purposes only, of course. So the only one who benefited from this, I imagine, are the adult actors who got paid by the CIA to make a film. This is what the CIA is doing in the 60s to prevent, as they see it, the spread of communism.
Yeah. And of course, we know about what's going on in the 60s. We know to some extent what's going on in the 70s, but generally, unless other factors are involved, there's about a 50-year secrecy block on any CIA operation. So who knows what's going on today, right? This is what I find so fascinating about this stuff. is that if a secret operation is going well, we do not hear about it. How do we infer what's happening or could potentially be happening today? One of the best ways to do it is just to look back in history. And that's certainly what they were doing back then. Now, we don't know. As I say, we don't know. I make no other claim, right? We just don't know what's going on today.
Yeah, I think that any sane person has to say you don't know because you drive yourself wild trying to speculate. But it does arm us with information saying these are the kinds of things they did then that are declassified. Who knows what's going to be declassified in like 50 years? I don't want to be alive to see it. You know, I mean, I do want to be alive, but I know that when I see it, I'll be disappointed, I guess.
Yeah, I find the declassification of the earlier stuff super exciting. So I'm really happy to be able to solve some mysteries from the 50s and 60s. But yeah, I want to know what's going on today, too.
Well, we're going to go to the 1970s after the break, where the CIA used sex dolls as a spy method, which, Lee, I'm so excited. You picked this topic, and it was like you were speaking directly to my heart. This is exactly the kind of purely academic, scholarly research and coverage I want to be doing.
Yeah, so in the 70s, the CIA comes up with this amazing way to manufacture a spy out of nothing.
And we will figure out how this sex doll spy was manufactured in just a few moments. We're with Dr. Lee Kuhnle. It is Conspiracy Corner. We'll be back with more ridiculous stories of the CIA using porn, sex, and sex dolls in their operations in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
Please be advised that the following program contains audio content that may be graphic and potentially triggering for some listeners. This content may include descriptions or sounds that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
It is Conspiracy Corner. We are discussing the times that the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, used things like sex, blow-up dolls, and all kinds of weird operations. We are here with Dr. Lee Kuhnle, political science professor at Humber Polytechnic. Check out his podcast, The Uncover Up, that he co-hosts. It's a great podcast about conspiracy theories. Lee, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
All right. The CIA has used blow-up dolls in their operations. Discuss.
Yeah, okay. Here's the situation. You're a spy in Moscow. Okay, you're an American spy in Moscow. And what you need to do is you need to go to dead drops to get your spy material. You know, one of your spies that you're working with has some information. They've secreted it away somewhere like under a park bench or something, and you got to get it. But the problem is, as an American spy in Moscow, you're being tailed all the time. Like, you know, the Soviet Union, during the time of the Soviet Union, is quite a different place from America. America is happy to have tourists come in. They are not necessarily just, you know, if you are a tourist from somewhere else, you're not necessarily therefore going to be, you know, red flagged by their security apparatus. But that's quite different in the Soviet Union. There's not a lot of tourism, especially from America. You've got some American wandering around in Moscow. That's probably a spy, and that person's going to get tailed. So how do you keep them away? The tails, they're not going to get right up to you. They're not going to mess with you. They're going to keep their distance. So you're driving along. You want to go to your dead drop. But the problem is if you get out of your car, you're going to leave your car. Who knows what's going to happen? They're going to put a bug device in it, or maybe they're going to rifle through your stuff or something. So this was the problem that was set to the CIA in the 1970s. And there was a guy named Walter McIntosh, and he was the CIA's Q from James Bond. You know, like he would come up with these like cool devices that would like solve problems like this.
Sure.
So this was the problem. How do we keep the Soviet spies from getting close to the American spies when we wanted, do a dead drop? And he's thinking about this and has an epiphany in an adult store, like a porn store with where they had blow-up dolls.
You can speak plainly, Lee.
Yes. I tried to dance around it, but no, he sees a sex doll in one of these shops and lights go off and he's like, this is perfect. So that becomes the basis for a kind of they actually called it a jib, a jack in the box. It was a dummy based on a sex doll that was modified so you could have it in a briefcase. So the briefcase, when it's closed, just as a briefcase, and when it opens, it suddenly blows itself up, inflates itself. And there's this doll with makeup on in the passenger seat of your car so that the Soviet spy who is, 50 feet behind looking through binoculars or like a hole in a newspaper, whatever spies used to do back then, will see, oh, well, there's somebody else in the car, so we can't go up and mess with it. And they did this. And apparently there have been documented cases. There was one in particular I was looking at in the 1980s where they full on used their jack-in-the-box sex doll blow-up fake spy thing in Moscow to get a dead drop.
I wonder if you could use that to go in the carpool lane during rush hour.
So I totally thought that too. I was like, this is going to be, because like you're going pretty fast. All they're really looking for, I'm assuming they don't have like heat guns or something to see if that person is alive. I was like, get 2 or 3 of these, stick them in my car. But I could also then imagine things going terribly wrong. So I never went through with that plan.
Let's go to this last thing that the CIA did that we're going to cover. Operation Midnight Climax. What a great name for an operation. It's got the word climax in it, midnight. Tell me about this. Was this a time that the CIA used sex to clandestinely or covertly do their operations?
Yeah, okay. Normally when you're dealing with spycraft, your code names are supposed to be completely distinct from the thing that you're doing. So this, I don't know what happened here, but their code name essentially just gives away the game, because what this was a sub-project of MKUltra. Just a few words on MKUltra. This one is a very sad one, and people did get really hurt. This was at least a 20-year secret operation run by the CIA against American and Canadian civilians. It was a mind control operation where they tried to use LSD as well as comas, things like that.
They famously basically tortured people with drugs to try to figure out what interrogation tactics they could use or try to research methods that they could use against the Soviets and other enemies.
Exactly. And the new drug that had just emerged on the scene was LSD, and it was quite a new category of drug. And of course, the CIA, their first question always is, great, how can we weaponize it? So that's what they were after here. So this is a sub-project of that. And basically what the CIA was doing was using sex workers who would take their clients to a CIA safe house. They would then administer LSD. They would have conjugal relations, and they were then schooled in elicitation and sort of interrogation techniques to see if these clients would reveal secret information afterwards. And the whole thing, being in a CIA safe house, was observed through a two-way mirror by CIA analysts on the other side.
It's wild to think that back then, I guess in the 60s or 50s, that sex workers were used as CIA assets against American citizens to try to test out spy techniques.
Yeah. So, and this is, okay, it's an interesting and complex point that you raise. I'm going to make just a kind of obvious point here that actually just formally, this is illegal. The CIA is not allowed to run operations against its own citizens. That is, not even considering sort of the moral and legal difficulties of using sex workers as well. And then dosing people without their knowledge with some pretty strong drugs. Like LSD is a strong drug. And if you don't know that that's what's happened to you, that's got to be a pretty scary, potentially scary evening.
Sure. I believe one person even died during this operation. He jumped out of the window of wherever they were having the operation because he was so distraught and so drugged up.
Yeah, sure. And this is, again, these operations sound quite funny, and they are in a way, but then things are less funny when you look below the surface, because it's really scary. I saw something similar. There's a clip floating around on YouTube, which is interesting. It's when the British Army gives LSD to some soldiers to see could this make them better in the battlefield. And of course, it doesn't. And they break down into hysterical laughter, and they kind of look at their guns like they don't know what the hell this is for. One guy climbs up a tree to feed some birds, which I think was the sweetest. But there is one guy who's in an ambulance because he is freaking out. Because, of course, if you don't know that you've administered this substance or that this is going to happen to you, I mean, even when you do, you can get scared and have a bad trip. If you don't, I mean, it must feel like psychosis or something.
Well, Lee, thanks for sharing these with me. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate you picking this topic.
It was fun being here. Thanks, David.
Dr. Lee Kuhnle is a political science professor at Humber Polytechnic. The video game Grand Theft Auto might be known for crime sprees and chaos, but what if it tells us something a little deeper about faith, morality, and the role of religion in culture? You might be surprised to find out there is some theology in games like GTA. I'm David Cooper, and we'll discuss that on The Last Show up next.
So good, so good, so good.
New fall arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Vince, Kurt Geiger London, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club at Nordstrom Rack to unlock exclusive discounts on your favorite brands. Shop new arrivals first and more. Plus, get an extra 5% off every Rack purchase with a Nordstrom credit card. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
The show that makes you laugh, think, and occasionally uncomfortable. The Last Show with David Cooper.
The video game Grand Theft Auto, or GTA, isn't exactly the first place you'd expect to find theology, but religion seems to creep into the game through its satire, its cults, even its in-game morality system. Joining us is Marshall Cunningham from the University of Chicago's Divinity School, who teaches a course called Gaming the Gods, and we're going to explore how GTA reveals things about faith and culture. What an interesting topic. Marshall, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I played the original GTA. Was that in the 90s or early 2000s?
I think 90s. I played it too.
All I can think of is crime sprees, chaos, crashing vehicles. The game was kind of funny in its narrative too, so definitely satire there. I don't see how religion creeped into this game, but you argue it did.
Yeah, I think on a couple of levels. So I think on the first level, and this is one of the questions that I ask in the course that I'm teaching, this Gaming the Gods course, is like, can you build a world that feels realistic to gamers without incorporating some religious elements? Why is it that the creators behind GTA felt the need, even satirically, to incorporate these kind of ideas and these visions of religion?
That seems like a question you can answer in a sentence or two, not in a whole semester course.
Yeah, sure. So GTA is an example. I think you're right? Like, it's the world outside. It's supposed to reflect the world that we step out into off of our front porch. But there are other games, right? Like the Halo series. And again, I'm dating myself in terms of age. Like that's about like fighting aliens. And the reason those aliens are on our planet is because of like their religious convictions. Right? Like if you can imagine anything in the universe, why does religion have to be part of that thing that you can create from scratch?
Well, if you're looking up into the cosmos, there are many people whose explanations for how it all came into existence, why it looks the way that it does, why we're here, these deep questions, and their answer is, a god or gods.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think there's an argument to be made, and scholars have done this. I'm not one of those scholars, but scholars have done this, that human beings, and perhaps all sentient beings, are naturally religious. As we try to explain things, the kind of de facto answer that we come up with is like, oh, higher power. Something with intelligence that's kind of like us that solves problems on the fly like we do.
So if you believe that argument, it should be no surprise that religion creeps its way into video games like GTA. What are some of the surprising, funny, weird, social commentary ways that religion pops up in a game like this?
Well, I think, so I love, like, one of the bits, I think it's in the first game, is that, like, the only way to save your progress is to go into a church with a Jesus Saves sign outside, which I just love. Like as a bit and in terms of like the kind of I don't know, the way that the creators of this game are mapping the world they experience onto the platform, right? Like this is how you save your progress so that you can move forward in the game, and then this is how you can save your progress so that you can move forward into the afterlife. Like that's just such a great connection.
And in later titles in this GTA series with video cutscenes and better graphics, like I remember the first one as sort of a top-down bird's-eye view, grainy graphics. There are things like pseudo-televangelists, like playing on billboards, on televisions. What does this say about these game creators and the way they viewed organized religion?
I mean, it feels pretty cynical to me. Aside from the fact that these religious leaders can help you save your spot in the game, they seem to take a pretty negative view of the role of religion in the society that they have created within this world. It's full of grifters. It's full of people who are trying to exploit you to make you join a cult, which is not particularly positive view of the kind of benefits that religion might offer a player.
Well, I want to talk about Halo a bit, the game that you referenced, because there's a television series, which is okay. It got canceled. I watch any and all sci-fi, so of course I watched it. Did I hate watch it? No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that great, though. Would not recommend. Like 2 stars. I'm trailing off here. But you're right. The enemy aliens who are kind of invading Earth, attacking Earth, and it's the planets that Earth colonizes, they have this religious conviction, like they're zealots, they're suicidal in their convictions, they want to wipe humans off the face of the earth because they consider them heathens. These elements are there in games, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think, so there's really interesting work about, and this is another one of these questions that I want to think of in my course, is the way that video games, like any text, right? Like a book, a TV show, a movie, creates kind of like insiders and outsiders, good guys and bad guys. And even in your description of the what are they called? The
aliens in Halo?
The aliens in Halo.
Oh, I completely forget.
The Covenant.
The Covenant, you're right.
Yeah.
They're using like a terminology from ancient Christianity, like the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah.
And we go to, and so like, even in this, in setting up the bad guys as members of the quote unquote covenant, right? Like that is a perspective on the potential dangers and violence of religious zealotry. And so part of what we're doing in the course is helping students think about those decisions that game creators make and the way they orient them towards their opposition in the game or the obstacles that they have to get past.
And many games, the guardrails on what you can do or not do, like you can do acts that are quote unquote evil or moral, but if you do them, then there's consequences. In GTA, you get the police, then the National Guard, then the military, then, you start to really flag the authorities of these video games to police your behavior. And what, if not religion, are morals in video games influenced by?
Yeah. No, I think this is really nice, right? And so this is the second point that I was thinking about earlier in the kind of value of GTA for this discussion. So Sigmund Freud, and now we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but he has this theory, right, that human beings as a species are naturally driven by violence and sex. which is bad if you want to put a society together, because people will start killing each other and sleeping with each other willy-nilly, and all of a sudden the civilization... Chaos! And quickly, super quickly. So once we get into a society, we decide that we are going to like repress those sexual and violent urges because it makes it easy to stay together. We need some sort of system in place to hold that together. And so this is where Freud thinks religion comes in. But we are ultimately unhappy as a result of that system because we are still at our base sexual and violent beings. This is what we want to do. And so a game like GTA that rewards kind of leaning into those antisocial behaviors, like, helps us be better citizens, maybe. Well, in that we are able to do the stuff that we instinctively want to do in the real world in a place where it's safe and there aren't any kind of like material consequences for our neighbors.
Interesting. That's if you buy a lot of those premises and stuff, but it is interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think, and so there have been debates about whether or not like this question comes up, right? Does a game like GTA that rewards amoral behavior or asocial behavior, like, does it spill over these boundaries between the kind of like fake or digital gamer world into the material world where we have to like interact with people on a day-to-day basis? And it's like not good to slam your car 70 miles an hour into innocent bystanders on the street.
What do you make of a game where it lets you commit quote unquote sins? Like you can run over people in GTA and the hope is you just don't get caught.
I do think it scratches some sort of, right, and I am not a scientist, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but it does seem to scratch some sort of itch inside of us. I remember playing the game as a kid and being like, man, this is, aside from the fact that like you were doing it without your parents knowing while you were playing, like it does scratch some sort of itch. You get a dopamine hit as you are committing all of these acts that you would absolutely not be allowed to do outside the game.
Is there one more central like thesis or one more point that you want to make in terms of this course, gaming and the gods, or gaming the gods, things that people don't realize in video games take religious elements?
Yeah, I think like to your original point about why these satirical elements, even if they're just satirical elements, creep their way into the game. And I think that like whether or not they realize it, people who are playing these games are in GTA in particular, are engaging with the worldview of the creators and this kind of system of values and ideas that like we would expect from somebody giving a sermon, or we would expect from a kind of textbook or even just a novel. But we're getting that in games too. And I think when we think about them as mediums or a medium for the expression of ideas, we get a way like richer engagement, right? We get to ask these questions like, why is this televangelist on the radio while I'm driving to run down some cops?
Well, Marshall, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks so much for sharing info about your course.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. I had a ton of fun.
After the break, video games can be used to reshape education and society. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show. There's people doing research in this area, and we'll speak to one of them up next.
Routine, adjective, used to describe an individual whose spirit is unyielding, unconstrained, one who navigates life on their own terms, effortlessly. They do not always show up on time, but when they arrive, you notice an individual confident in their contradictions. They know the rules but behave as if they do not exist. Routine, the new fragrance by Miu Miu, defined by you.
Broadcasting intimate confessions and useless obsessions. You're listening to The Last Show with David Cooper.
Video games aren't just for fun. Gaming doesn't have to be negative. They can shape how we learn, collaborate, even tackle big societal challenges. I'm here with Dr. Patrick Jagoda, a media studies professor at the University of Chicago and director of the Weston Game Lab. And I want to talk about how play can transform higher education, even society. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, David. Great to be here.
Many people, my mother included, still think of games, video games, as entertainment, distraction, kind of negative, brain rotting. How do you explain to skeptics like her that games can be powerful tools used for social good?
I mean, the first thing I would say to her is just that games are a really huge cultural form in 2025. So I like to tell people that when Grand Theft Auto 5 first came out, it made $1 billion of revenue in 3 days. And then it made, $10 billion subsequently. Or Fortnite has 650 million registered users and has made about $42 billion. I mean, this just compare this to film, right? Like Avatar, which is the highest grossing film of all time, made maybe $3 billion at the box office, $6 billion total. And I could name scores of games that exceeded that. So just at a cultural level, it's really important to understand games the way we once understood novels or films or things like that. And beyond that, I do think there are pretty large potential learning benefits for students and just for general learners.
Well, let's talk about some of these projects you've worked on. You've used games for kind of surprising things like health or civic engagement. How are you using games in education? How can they be good tools for this kind of stuff?
Yeah, and I think there are a few things about games that make them really productive. So one is they immerse people, right? A well-designed game connects us viscerally and emotionally. We want to finish. We want to win. We want to see where the interactive story goes. Games also garner curiosity and motivation and optimism about completing a task. So they're really well aligned with the way we learn. And then they just activate multiple learning styles, right? You're not just listening to a lecture. You're getting a story at a textual level. You're getting a soundtrack and a sonic level. You're getting graphics. It's interactive. It's replayable. And I think most importantly, games allow us to fail in a safe way and to try again, which we don't get a lot of chances of in this particular society. So I think, the games that we work on are about things like climate change and public health and reproductive justice and open inquiry. We like to make games about a bunch of different topics and collaborate with area experts. For me, that's fun because I get to learn about a bunch of different topics, but also translating that subject matter into a game can be an interesting artistic process.
It certainly can. Can you give me a specific example of one of these games you've used in higher education?
Yeah, we had a whole program where we made board games about issues like contraception, for instance, to work with high school students, right? So how do you get high school students thinking about contraception or STIs or various kind of medical issues? One really effective way is to have them play games on that topic, but also to design their own games. So we would use workshops where they would engage in this kind of systems learning through game design. Or a second example would be we designed a science fiction game for all of the incoming students at the University of Chicago. So 1,800 students were invited to play a game about climate change. And by the end of the game, they were pitching ideas for how to mitigate climate change. And that was a big kind of live action plus digital game that took place over several weeks.
Do your peers, in higher education, ever dismiss games as not serious because of, the societal connotation or views like my mother's?
I think historically, yeah. I got my PhD in an English department and people studied poems and novels and theater, but they didn't really maybe take games seriously with a handful of exceptions. I think more and more you're finding university level programs and things like game design, but also game studies, right? So analyzing games the way we once might have close read a poem, for instance.
Talk to me about gamification, because I feel like there are elements of games that are somewhat negative. Like, okay, you get this basic free game, but you have to pay extra money to win, and then we take those elements and move them into marketing in areas that aren't games. There's got to be negative parts of gaming.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of my writing actually criticizes gamification for focusing too much on extrinsic motivation, right? So extrinsic motivation has to do with rewards and punishment. So it's the stuff that we see with points and leaderboards and badges, the very superficial aspects of gaming that are often used for marketing or for selling products. I prefer to design games that focus on intrinsic motivation, right? So telling a really good story that gets people immersed in a world, or producing game mechanics that get them interested in learning a new skill that they didn't have before. But again, that's not the most common side of contemporary gaming.
Certainly isn't. You started off by talking about gaming being this huge cultural phenomenon. Talk to me more about that. Like, what cultural shifts do you see emerging from gaming? Like, talk to me about how young people are on Fortnite with their friends. This is like a huge thing for people who don't really know about it or don't game themselves.
Yeah, the thing that's remarkable there to me is not just that so many people are playing games, and it is the estimate is that we're somewhere in the 3 to 3.5 billion player range right now. So this has gone from a very small arcade-focused thing in the 1970s to this still relatively small area in the 1980s when you had the original Nintendo or Sega, into something that is a very mainstream activity. But it's not just playing, it's also viewing games, right? So for instance, last year, Minecraft videos surpassed 1.5 trillion views on YouTube, right? Like these videos have been watched over 1 trillion times, almost 2 trillion now. And so people are watching other people play games, both on kind of live streaming formats and also video formats. We also see games seeping into our cultural imaginary. So think about things like Squid Game, for instance, right? Squid Game is a metaphor for debt and neoliberalism in Korea and in other countries. And that was one of the biggest hits on Netflix. Or, you have a bunch of other things like Hunger Games or Jumanji or reality TV shows or applications of games to the military, for instance. I mean, games are really everywhere in our society now.
I remember when I was a kid, there was a game offered for free by the U.S. military. It was like a shooter game. I think it was called like America's Army or something. And it was used as a recruiting tool, which was so surprising to me, especially since I grew up in Canada. Like social good, you mentioned, or I'd like to talk about games for social good. Are there areas where people might be surprised that video games could be used for that?
Yeah, I think like a number of years ago, for instance, we worked on a couple of games that had to do with sexual harassment and sexual violence. Like you wouldn't think that somebody would work on a game about something that serious, right? But in many ways, games are serious, right? They can be fun, but they also teach us about rule systems. And rules make up things like the law, for instance, right? Like, I mean, we live by social norms, we live by legal standards, and games are an artistic way of remaking many of those rules, right? So rethinking what is taken for granted. And I think a lot of experimental games and independent games move in precisely that direction and not necessarily just the fun direction. I also think, like I was saying before, that there are all of these potential learning benefits to games. One of those is they teach us systems learning, right? So they can take something really abstract like an economy or a political system, and they could break it down into parts that you actually want to backwards engineer and understand. And they do that by taking, again, this kind of abstract code and these abstract ideas and making them really concrete through graphics and soundtracks and interactivity and things we really want to do.
I mean, I'm thinking of a game from the late 80s, early 90s, SimCity. Somehow they took urban planning and made it interesting. This is not a new thing, but I guess it can be used in amazing ways now with the technology we have.
Yeah, it's a game where, like, SimCity is already encouraging environmentalism, right? The more parks you build, the lower your pollution rates go down, for instance. So games can have something called procedural rhetoric, where they persuade you of something through what you do.
Well, I am here with Dr. Patrick Jagoda, who's a professor of media studies at the University of Chicago. Patrick, thanks for the chat. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me again.
Up next, the reason why Gen Z workers won't stick around for low pay, no work-life balance, or general bad vibes at work. Why young people might be quick to quit their jobs after the break.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 45% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Young people, Gen Zers, don't tolerate things in the workplace on average that maybe the older generations do. And we're going to go over some things that if they happen to Gen Z, they are likely to quit their job. I'm here with Matthew Alston, a reporter with Business Insider, to discuss. Matthew, I know you don't like lumping generations into huge buckets, but sometimes it's fun or helpful to do it.
Yeah, I think I've already with you on this program railed against the sort of generational astrology. I share things in common with my child because we share DNA, not because we were both born in April. But yeah, in general, it's not a bad idea sometimes to think about do I have a bunch of young employees who grew up with the internet in their bedroom? Or do I have a bunch of, young employees who grew up with a different relationship to work than I did? Or, if you're a boomer or even now like an aging millennial,
Yeah. I mean, fluency with certain technological skills. I mean, so one generation was communicating with their family using telegraphs. There are generational changes. This one I want to talk about is kind of interesting because as I was kind of coming up in my early 20s in big corporate places, there was no talk about pay transparency. And then somewhere along the line, 10, 15 years ago, maybe 5, this started coming up more. Some jurisdictions started regulating it. Like I was working in California, pay ranges needed to be posted in job listings. There's been a big change here, and some young people are unwilling to tolerate no transparency about pay these days.
And that's one of those welcome changes where when you describe it to someone who may have friction or resistance to the idea of pay transparency, flexible work hours, work from home, these sort of things that Gen Z prefers and almost sometimes demands, they feel and sound emotional, but they're really sort of equitable, tactical, useful ways to build a business. You're more likely. It's not just there's a generation that wants to know how much they and their peers are being paid. There's a generation that treats sort of labor consciousness and class consciousness and equitability and fairness differently. It's not just an emotional fairness. It's a tactical way to ensure that an organization has all the parts it needs and can have all the parts it needs moving forward. Giving employees specific 3 and 5 year plans, specific expectations about pay. These things really are just good business practices, less than treating Gen Z with kid gloves.
Yeah, I remember telling my coworkers what I made, the ones at the same level as me, and finding out and trying to coax them into telling me what they made. And there was this resistance to it, but that resistance only really helps the employer, right? If they can keep everyone's pay in secret, they can get away with paying someone who might be great less because they have bad negotiating skills, or someone who isn't that great more. I mean, we all know the reasons why it's good, but it takes a bit of a mental shift to have that transparency amongst your peers and stuff.
I had a boss who used to say, privilege is great, everybody should have it. And pay transparency is one of those things that extends the privilege of, one person or a few people being overpaid to everybody. That knowledge sort of gives everyone more power to move into, the in my opinion, the deserved privileged position of getting overpaid.
Here's one that it would appear Gen Z doesn't tolerate not having, double negative, needs to have or wants to have. And this one kind of hits home for me because I used to work in the tech sector before I was in media. And I would look at companies and what technologies they were using on the software side, like what programming languages and databases and this, that, and the other. But also I'm like, well, you're using a Microsoft suite of software to email. No, I want the Gmail suite. I worked in Silicon Valley in the 2020s, late 2010s, when it was very easy to get a job. Now it's totally changed. AI's wiped out that possibility. Salaries are down, COVID layoffs, these sorts of things. You could have the benefit of choosing an employer based on their technology stack. But people do that, right? They don't want to work at a company that uses outdated software because it's going to make their work suck.
I'm reporting something about this right now that is forthcoming. But yeah, it's a funny several anecdotes I've encountered lately of someone being like, I logged on
to have my interview and I realized I was on a Teams call and I wanted nothing to do with this company.
It's kind of funny, but it's like, you know what? Using inefficient software every day and having a big corporation force you to use it is soul crushing.
Yeah. And the tools that we use at any job mediate our experience of that job. A person, I'm staining my deck right now across many days, praying it doesn't rain. And, maybe a bad analogy, but like just I need the correct tools to do this job appropriately, or else it becomes incredibly frustrating. And I throw my stuff down and I go back inside and wash my hands and sit down and don't finish it. And encountering frustrating technology should never be sort of an expectation of a job, but especially the younger, more fluent generation can immediately sort of sift and filter what tools are useful and what aren't. Project management software is one of these where you find a real generational gap between people who, swear by it and people who are like, I will use this if I have to, but why don't you just ask me to turn in my work instead of tag it to a card, to a thing, to a, Gen Z and younger generations in the workforce are, I think, again, correctly dubious and correctly reject like pointless, obnoxious, repetitive, redundant software. Absolutely.
Are Gen Zs more in tune with corporate hypocrisy? Things like greenwashing, pinkwashing, things where like a corporation says they have great values, but then internally they don't have them. Will Gen Z walk from a job over these sorts of things at a principle? And if they will, I admire this generation because they have more of a spine than me.
I think you already hit on it where any generation, any labor force will walk because of a frustration if the labor market gives them the ability to. We're seeing studies in the last 6 months and reports of really sort of a locked-in workforce the last couple of years. These frustrations that we all have at work, sometimes we're a little more tolerant of them just because of the job market. I do think that the younger generation of workers now, as a result of just a wild media ecosystem that we all live in and that they grew up in, are more conscious of maybe not just the hypocrisies of the workforce, but like the internal contradictions and frustrations. I don't think that maybe I'm making an assumption, but my dad or your dad maybe didn't say they hated working for the man, but they didn't speak about it in the same class conscious every day of my life I'm on an app like a TikTok.
Yeah, I was about to say that if the boomers had TikTok, would they have spoken out? Maybe.
Yeah, I think everybody has hated working for the man forever. I mean, I'm sure we can find scrolls buried in a volcanic eruption in Italy that are that involve someone hating how something went down at in an employment or a business situation.
They also have Glassdoor, where they go online and vent about their former employers or even their current employers' bad values for the world to see. What a funny platform that exists. You can anonymously say things about a company and your experience there.
The current generation has the ability, I think, because of remote work and because of digital work, I think, to disregard a job quicker, for sure. You aren't sort of moving. Many people aren't now moving to a new city and they've moved here for this job and and they're going to be more patient with it. If you have a job online from your, second bedroom, spare room office, and you have the ability to get a new one, you are going to be less loyal. You are going to be more, you're going to more readily be willing to bounce.
Well, Matthew Alston is a reporter with Business Insider. Matthew, thanks for chatting with me. I've enjoyed this one.
I'm happy you're back from the desert. Thanks.
Up next, feeling lonely? Turns out tiny acts of kindness, like holding a door or sending a text, might be the best medicine. I'm David Cooper, and the last show continues in a moment.
Attention all small biz owners. At the UPS Store, you can count on us to handle your packages with care. With our certified packing experts, your packages are properly packed and protected. And with our pack and ship guarantee, when we pack it and ship it, we guarantee it, because your items arrive safe or you'll be reimbursed. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today.
When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
Loneliness is on the rise, but what can we do about it? Well, a new study suggests that the cure may be simpler than you'd think. Small acts of kindness. I'm joined by Dr. Yeeun Archer Lee, a psychology professor at Trinity Western University in British Columbia, whose research shows why kindness can especially help us feel less alone. And it works doubly so for those who have social anxiety. Yeeun, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Why do you think something as simple as like holding a door or sending a friendly text to check up on a friend has this big effect on loneliness?
Yeah, so we have been thinking about it because we saw this effect that when you practice daily acts of kindness, it helps reducing loneliness and also it makes us engage with other people more. I think first is acts of kindness are everywhere. It's pretty common, so it's doable, small actions that people can actually initiate. So people who are socially anxious or who are lonely can actually feel that they can initiate this. And oftentimes, acts of kindness lead to a positive interactions as we get to see the smile that we put on someone's face. So it kind of encourages us to continue going out and talking to people and doing something. Yeah.
You'd think that kindness to someone very close to you, like a boyfriend, a wife, a sister, a best friend, matters a lot. But your study found it matters the most to those you have weak ties with, maybe an acquaintance, maybe someone you don't know that well. Why might saying hi to your neighbor or your coworker help that person with loneliness so much?
Yeah, we were so nicely surprised by that result. I think, there are people just outside of the closest circle, and they are people who we encounter in our daily life, in our neighborhood, in our workplace, and oftentimes we focus on closest people, closest friends who are very important in our lives. But strengthening those everyday interactions, even if it looks very minimal, seem to make a real difference in how we feel connected to the society or groups that we belong to.
I introduced myself to the woman at a bakery near where I live. It's like a Hong Kong sponge cake bakery. And that was like maybe 6 months ago. And the other day she overcharged me for something and she came right up to me and she said, "David, I made a big mistake." I was shocked she remembered my name and it made me feel good for the rest of the day. It made me feel like I had a real sense of community. I think if we all reflect on small ways in which strangers are kind to us or people we don't know are kind to us, it can matter a lot.
Yeah, we think so. And what's powerful about acts of kindness is that at the core is the caring for other people. So when we have that outward focus, it really helps us to soothe our self-conscious worries that we often carry, especially that are common in social anxiety and chronic loneliness. Because when we try to care for other people, we don't really worry about how other people will reject me or judge me because our focus is not much in ourselves.
Well, let's talk about how we always worry about being judged and reframing that to thinking how I can help. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so this self-focus or self-conscious worries about how people will perceive me, how people will evaluate me, are one of the things that stop us from going and talking to people because we are afraid. And that's very self-focused because our focus and our intention is to protect ourselves. But whereas the act of kindness really comes from the gesture that we want to be nice for other people, we want to care for them, and that kind of offsets this self-focus, concern, or worries that sometimes people struggle with.
Were there any surprising or funny examples of small acts of kindness that in your research participants came up with that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah, it was just so heartwarming to read what they actually did because we asked people to record what they did each day, every day for 2 weeks. And it really ranged. Some people talk about them checking in on people who they didn't really talk to for a while. Some people was talking about just giving nice compliment to a neighbor or showing appreciation. Or some people talking about, bringing funny snacks to their coworkers. So it all varied. Nothing really surprising that, how they could do that. But it was just really nice to see what people could come up with in terms of caring for other people around them.
Sometimes we just feel we don't have the time for things like this. I feel like maybe I am, but I feel like I'm not an inherently selfish person. But sometimes I just don't take the time because I'm busy. Like I live in New York. Everything's busy. I'm running. I'm rushing. I got to make something on time. The trains are running late. How can we incorporate this in our life? Is it really just as simple as taking a few minutes to do something nice for others, or are there other tricks we can do to be more kind?
Yeah, I don't think I have a trick, but I want to encourage people that, it doesn't always take tons of time. And you can also really start with a small gesture, holding a door. Maybe it takes 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and eye contacting with those people and saying hi. I think it starts from really small things that you really feel you want to, because it shouldn't be a homework that we feel like I have one more thing to do in my busy day.
And it's like anything. The more you practice, the better you get at it. You build the muscle, don't you?
I think so. I do think social connection or this kind of acts of kindness are like muscles. We work out and we get stronger and we do more things. So I think it can all start from small things that we feel manageable.
Tell me about past studies into acts of kindness. They had mixed results, as I understand them. Where do you think researchers went with previous studies versus what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think generally acts of kindness, or we call it pro-social behavior in a larger term, which just basically means what we do for other people. They tend to show the positive effects on our mood. Like when we do acts of kindness, we feel good. When we volunteer, we feel good about ourselves and about the world. But still, there were mixed results that it seems like it didn't work for everyone, that doing acts of kindness is not the solution for everyone's loneliness.
Interesting. Any future research projects? You're looking at tailoring interventions to different kinds of groups. Tell me about what you're working on next.
Yeah, so this research made me realize, one type of solution doesn't solve everyone's loneliness, because we found that acts of kindness was particularly effective for people who are socially anxious, who are lonely, but not for everyone. So I'm more interested in our tailored approach to see what works for which group, because people do have different social needs. People, younger adults versus older adults, or people with lower incomes, people with disability, people with minority identities, they might all have different needs for connections. So I'm looking into the ways that society can help people really find connections accessible for them.
I know the findings aren't necessarily published yet, but what are some of the different ways that different groups would like to see kindness, or we can be kind to them?
Yeah, I'm now interested in people who are in a lower income group. Everyone needs social connection, but they might not have a lot of time. As you mentioned, David, that people are busy, and especially if you don't have enough materials, you have to do side hustle. You are just busier. So for some people, giving your time can be a good way, or also finding way for them to connect with other people with more time can be helpful.
What would you like to see society change? In which way would you like to see society change to focus on kindness being an antidote to loneliness? What would you want people to know who are just listening now and thinking, I can be kind in little ways to those around me?
Yeah, I want to tell them that research, not my research, someone else's research, shows that what people really care and appreciate is the warm intention that the kind acts convey. It's nothing about how big they are or how well you do them. So I think we all have the warm intention that we can share with each other.
Well, Yeeun, thank you so much for sharing your research with me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Yeeun Archer Lee is a psychology professor at Trinity Western University in British Columbia, Canada. That's a wrap on the last show for the evening. Not like ever. We do this every day. And don't forget, The Last Show is available as a podcast. Head to www.lastshow.pizza, not .com, .pizza. There you can find out more details, including how to subscribe. I am David Cooper, and I'm telling you this for the last time. This wasn't the first show. I mean, I'll probably say that again. It's not really a good joke. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you tomorrow night.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.